I am dead, died in a meticulously planned car accident. When I was thrown from the vehicle and my soul drifted weightlessly in midair, I saw my usually gentle and refined older brother, Suja, standing calmly in the distance, saying into the phone, "It's done." I thought I was a sacrifice to the family's interests, until my funeral was over, until the deep of night, my grief-stricken family members, sneaking around, came to my tombstone. They didn't bring flowers, instead, they brought a bottle of 1982 Lafite and 4 wine glasses. Dad Su Jiangwo, Mom Li Wan, brother Suja, and the sister they treasured like a jewel, Su Ro. The sadness on the faces of the 4 of them vanished without a trace, replaced by relieved, distorted excitement. With a bang, the champagne was opened, golden liquid poured into the glasses, and they clinked them cheerfully over my grave. "She's finally dead, Dad," Su Jiangwo let out a long breath. "In this life, we finally got rid of her before her fortune fully matured at the age of 22. Mom, Li Wan, took a sip of wine, a delighted smile on her face. "Yes, last life we hesitated and dragged things out until she was 24. By then, her fortune was already locked together with the Su family's dragon vein, and after we made our move, the Su family suffered a severe blow. In this life, Ruru can perfectly inherit all of her fortune. Our Su family will rise to an unprecedented height." Brother Suja adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, his gaze behind the lenses cold and sharp. "I've already made the arrangements. Next week, we'll invite Master Xianming to perform the ritual and completely transfer Sun Yan's fortune to Ruru. Ruru, are you ready?" Surrounded by them, Su Ro, the girl who was always so gentle and weak, who used to follow behind me and call me sister, showed not the slightest trace of timidity on her face at this moment. Her eyes flickered with greed as she nodded vigorously. "Dad, Mom, brother, don't worry. In my previous life, I managed to become only a second-tier celebrity by relying on the remaining bit of Sun Yan's luck. In this life, I'm going to be a top star. I'm going to be wealthy and powerful. I'm going to trample everyone underfoot." I floated in midair like a stunned spectator struck dumb by a bolt of lightning, standing motionless as I watched this absurd, terrifying, and yet ridiculous scene before me. Rebirth. They were all reborn, my parents, my older brother, even this fake heiress who came from nowhere. They all carried the memories of their previous life and returned to the past. The purpose of their rebirth was not to make up for regrets, nor to restore family bonds. It was so that they could kill me again, earlier and more perfectly. So, I was never their family. I was just a loot bag, kept in captivity, one that respawned at fixed times and carried immense treasures. In their previous life, they killed me and divided up my spoils, but it seemed they didn't split them well enough, not perfectly enough, and left behind after effects, so they reloaded their save and started over, all just to use a more practiced method to farm me. This dungeon, once again. Ha, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. I smiled. At first, it was a low, suppressed laugh. Later, it turned into a wanton, shrill peal of laughter. My soul, which had originally been semi-transparent, began to turn pitch black and solid. A force cold to the extreme, mixed with boundless resentment and mockery, was madly surging out from the depths of my soul. They couldn't hear my laughter and were still discussing with great excitement how to divide up my inheritance. Dad said that my fortune could make his company the sole winner in the next financial storm. Mom said that my fortune could keep her eternally young and beautiful in the circle of wealthy ladies, outshining all the others. My brother said that my fortune could help him clear all obstacles in his official career and rise smoothly through the ranks. As for Su Ro, she wanted everything. She wanted my beauty, my talent, my family background, everything about me. They were like a pack of vultures circling a treasure, impatiently eager to tear at my flesh and blood. They didn't know, just when they thought the game had only just begun, as the NPC they sacrificed, I had already awakened, and I had obtained this world's highest authority. My revenge was also about to begin. After the initial surge of fury and absurdity had passed, I quickly calmed down. As a newly wrongfully killed, newly risen vengeful ghost, I knew nothing about my current situation. What could I do? What abilities did I have? All of that was unknown, and my enemies were 4 experienced players, who possessed the enormous informational advantage of rebirth. Know the enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles without defeat. I suppressed the murderous intent churning in my heart and, like the best hunter, followed silently behind them. The first thing I needed to do was gather intelligence and figure out their clearance record from their previous life. They returned to the Su family villa, that cage filled with false warmth where I had lived for 22 years. At this moment, a celebration feast, was unfolding in this cage. They were completely unguarded, thinking that I, this experience pack, had already been fully dropped and were now safely collecting their rewards. While eating an expensive dinner, they were reviewing the gains and losses from their previous life. From their conversation, I finally pieced together a complete, blood-soaked truth. It turned out that I wasn't the Su family's biological daughter at all. I was an orphan, but I was born with the blessing of heavenly fate, possessing the once-in-a-century Z-Way star destiny. Somehow, the Su family learned of this secret, and when I was still an infant, they adopted me. They treated me well, gave me the best education, and let me grow up carefree, not because of family affection. Rather, it was because something like fate required the host to be in a state of happiness, health, and joy in order to be nurtured to its most perfect form. The better my life was, the more nourishment they would be able to seize in the future. And Su Ro was their real daughter. Because she had been frail and sickly since childhood, they sent her to the countryside. In my previous life, they only brought her back when I was 24. Then, they staged an accident and made me voluntarily donate my heart to the critically ill Su Ro. That great sacrifice of familial love was, at the time, even praised as a touching story. But what they didn't know was that at 24, my fortune had already been linked to the dragon vein of the Su family ancestral home. Forcibly severing it damaged the Su family's dragon vein and triggered a backlash of their fortune. Although Su Ro survived by relying on my heart and my fortune, and even became a star, the Su family enjoyed a brief period of glory as well, in the end. However, their fate was far from good. My father's company failed to secure its crucial investment at a critical moment and went bankrupt. Mom's beauty rapidly aged, becoming the laughingstock of the society ladies' circle. My brother's official career came to a halt at an awkward middle position, and he died disgruntled. So, they were reborn, carrying enormous unwillingness toward the less-than-perfect ending of their previous life. They were reborn. In this life, they learned to be smarter, too. Years earlier, when I was 22 and my fate had not yet been locked to the dragon vein, they made their move. They no longer used the kind of heart swap that would leave traces. Instead, they used a clean, decisive car accident they thought that would make everything foolproof. Ruru, remember this, Su Jiangwo said to Su Ro in an unprecedentedly serious tone at the dinner table. After you obtain Su Nian's fate, the first thing you do is sign up for next month's The Voice of Nature talent show. In the last life, you debuted through this program. In this life, you must win first place, and also, for your college application, you must choose the Film Academy. Li Wan added. Director Zhang Xianxia Film Coming to Ask the Immortals, which is about to start shooting, has already secretly cast you as the female lead. In the last life, you missed it because you had no experience, which let the rival company get there first. In this life, we have to lay out the plan ahead of time. Su Zhe then took out a document. This is something I put together for you. Over the next 5 years, all the stocks and investment projects that are going to explode. Use Su Nian's inheritance to set up a studio, and start with investments. Remember, only put money into these few. Each of them, like experienced game players, were planning the most perfect, pay-to-win leveling up route for Su Ro. This new account, and all of this was built on my death. I floated beneath the dining room chandelier, coldly watching this harmonious and loving family strategy plan. I can't feel anger, and I can't feel sadness. In my heart, there is only a cold, almost absolute, rational killing intent. They thought they held the strategy guide in their hands. They didn't know that I, the GM, was already online. Moreover, I just discovered that I seemed to have gained a very, very interesting new ability. My gaze passed through their flesh and saw that each of them was entangled in some invisible, illusory threads that the naked eye could not perceive. Around Dad were golden threads, representing wealth, luck. Around Mom were pink threads, representing popularity and charm. Threads on my brother's body was a thread of blue-purple color, representing official fortune. As for Su Ro, at this moment she was like a whirlpool of energy, greedily preparing to absorb the most dazzling purple gold. Main thread of fate, dissipating from my corpse. I tried to extend my illusory hand, condensed from resentment, and gently touched the thickest golden thread on Dad Su Jiangwo's body. The next second, Su Jiangwo, who had been speaking eloquently, suddenly choked on a mouthful of red wine and coughed until he was racked with pain. His face flushed red, and the limited edition phone worth $1 million, which he had placed on the table, also went dark without warning. The screen went black. The motherboard burned out instantly. and a wisp of smoke rose from it. The corners of my mouth slowly curled into a cold, humorless arc. So, this so-called luck or fortune, I could not only see it, it seemed I could also touch it. After discovering that I possessed the ability to interfere with threads of fortune, I did not immediately launch a large-scale revenge campaign. An excellent trader needs to fully understand the rules of the market before formally entering it, and repeatedly test their own tools. The next 7 days were my first 7 days after death. According to custom, my soul could roam the world of the living, and this became the best tutorial phase for me as a beginner. I was like a ghost, a true ghost, drifting through every corner of the Sioux family villa. I began to systematically and deeply study this mysterious power called fortune. I discovered that everyone's threads of fortune are never fixed. They subtly change according to a person's emotions, actions, and even their surroundings. For instance, whenever my father, Su Jiangwo, got good news and was on the verge of closing a major business deal, the golden threads lingering around him would glow brighter and grow thicker, and when I silently plucked at them with my fingers, my heart seething with resentment, those threads would tremble violently. In fact, every time this happened, trivial troubles would suddenly crop up for him. The contract printer might jam out of nowhere, or the client would abruptly come down with a stomachache and rush to the restroom, holding up the contract signing. When Mom, Li Wan, dressed up carefully and prepared to attend a wealthy lady's afternoon tea to show off her new jewelry, the pink threads on her body would, like a peacock fanning its tail, radiate a captivating glow, and all I had to do was gently blow a puff of resentment at those threads, and that glow would fade. In reality, that meant her eyeliner would suddenly smudge, or the zipper on her dress would inexplicably burst open. The most interesting one was my brother, Su Jia. He was cautious by nature and deeply scheming. His purplish-blue threads of official fortune had always been very stable, but I noticed that when he was alone in his study, watching those political intrigue dramas on his computer and imagining his bright future, his threads of official fortune would excitedly lift their heads. So, whenever he was at the peak of his rise, I would go over and fiddle with it a bit. In real life, that would show up as his computer suddenly blue screening, or as the long thought-out insights into the art of thick blackness he'd been working on for ages disappearing because he hit the wrong key and failed to save. These were all harmless little pranks, but they gave me an increasingly clear understanding of the limits of my own abilities. First, my current ability is still very weak. I can't directly cut off their threads of fortune. I can only interfere with them a little, like making some discordant noise on a tightly strung violin string. Second, the effect of my interference is related to the intensity of my own resentment. When I recall the scene of them killing me, at the moment when my resentment is deepest, the interference I cause is at its strongest. My hatred is my mana bar. Third, this kind of interference seems to be invisible. They would only think it was bad luck or an accident, completely unable to detect my existence. This cat-and-mouse game gave me an unprecedented, pathological sense of pleasure. Reader. Bullet comments. Oh, right, there are no bullet comments in my world. But I can imagine that if this were a story, the bullet comments would be flooded with the words, "So satisfying." On the last day of the first 7, Master Xianming arrived. He was the so-called expert invited by the Su family to perform the fortune transfer ritual for Su Rou. In the original story, in my previous life, he was the mastermind who helped the Su family steal my fortune. As soon as he arrived, I felt a powerful pressure. Around him were strands of gray-white threads, thick with decay and deception. He could see things ordinary people could not. He walked around the villa once, his brows tightly furrowed. Strange, he pinched his fingers to make a calculation, then said to Su Jiangwo, "Mr. Su, there's something off about the aura in your residence. It seems there is a very strong resentment lingering here, refusing to disperse." Su Jiangwo and Li Wan's expressions changed instantly. "Master, do you mean Su Nianxi?" "Very likely," Master Xianming said with feigned profundity. "The eldest miss died a violent death. Her resentment reaching the heavens, turning into a bound spirit is only natural. However, rest assured, with me here, she won't be able to stir up any waves. Once I perform the ritual and disperse her resentment, then transfer her fortune to the second miss, the matter can be settled once and for all." I floated in midair, coldly staring at this charlatan. Dispel my resentment, I smiled. My resentment was something the entire Su family had personally forged for me with 22 years of hypocrisy and a bloody murder. How could it be dispelled just because you say so? That night, the ritual began. Su Rou was dressed in a long white gown, lying on the altar in the center of the living room. Master Xianming lit the talisman paper, chanting incantations under his breath. I could see it, on my body lying in the ice coffin. The thickest strand of purple gold fortune, the main thread of my destiny, was being slowly drawn out by an invisible force, preparing to be grafted onto Su Ro. Meanwhile, on the other side, a grayish-white energy brimming with purifying power spread toward me like a giant net. Master Xianming wanted to steal my treasure and delete my account at the same time. The idea was beautiful, but I am the GM. Just as that giant net was about to touch me, I made a bold decision. I didn't dodge. Instead, I took the initiative and rushed toward it. At the same time, I focused all my resentment into one point, aiming it at that main thread of fate of my own that was being pulled away. I cannot stop it from being extracted, but perhaps I can taint it. With all the resentment of my life, I directed the most vicious curse toward my own fortune. Sun Yen, swear with my soul as the curse, henceforth, anyone who steals my fortune shall be plagued by misfortune, doomed for all eternity. The next second, my soul was struck hard by that vast net. Intense pain surged through me, my vision went dark, and I lost consciousness. But in the last moment before I lost consciousness, I saw clearly that the core of my originally brilliant purple gold thread of fate had been stained with a shade of black as ink, something that could not be purified. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a pure white, empty space, and my soul had become several times more solid than before. The resentment that had once merely lingered around me had now completely merged with my soul, becoming part of my power. Master Xuanming's purification spell had not dispersed me. Instead, like a heavy hammer, and after countless rounds of tempering, it had forged this iron of resentment into a sharper blade of grudges. He's just given me a whole batch of experience points. I can feel that my control over the threads of fate has now advanced from simple tinkering to guiding and grafting. With a thought, I returned to the Su family villa. The ritual for the transfer of fate had already ended. Su Ro was lying on the bed, and over her body, a layer of dazzling purple golden fortune that belonged to me had successfully been overlaid. The 4 members of the Su family were all gathered around her bedside, their faces filled with the joy of success. Master, how did it go? Su Jiangwo asked impatiently. Master Xianming wiped the sweat from his forehead. His face was somewhat pale, but he still forced himself to smile calmly and said, "Fortunately, I did not fail my mission. Second Miss has successfully inherited eldest Mrs. Ziwei star destiny. It's just that eldest Mrs. resentment was too strong, and there was a small accident during the process, but it's nothing serious." Of course, he would not say that the ritual artifact he used to purify me had already been cracked open by my resentment. They did not know that what Su Ro had inherited was a contaminated, top-tier account that I had secretly installed a Trojan on. I watched all of this coldly. In my mind, the revenge plan had officially begun. For my first target, I chose my so-called, brilliantly promising, older brother. Suja, 28, was already the deputy director of an important municipal department. Young and accomplished, he was a political rising star in everyone's eyes. In my previous life, relying on the fortune he had split from me, he ultimately rose to a provincial ministerial post. In this life, his ambition was even greater. I knew he was currently competing for a key position, the director of the Development Zone Management Committee. This position was a golden stepping stone for promotion, and his biggest rival was another deputy director, one who was older and had seniority over him. Suja's advantage was that he was young, decisive, and, moreover, had a patron helping him from behind the scenes. I could clearly see that beside his bluish-purple, official fortune thread, there was an accompanying bright silver, patron fortune thread. This thread was faintly connected to a big leader in the city. It was precisely this leader's favor that had allowed him to advance so smoothly. Patron fortune, I laughed. In the script of rebirth, there was no variable like me. The next day, Suja put on his most expensive suit and went to work looking radiant. Today he was going to the home of that top leader to make a private report. In reality, it was the final push for his own promotion. He thought this would be another perfect meeting, just like in his previous life. I floated above his car roof, following him, and came to the upscale residential area where that top leader lived. Then, I saw my tool of the crime. It was a golden retriever with golden fur, being walked by its owner in the residential complex. I smiled. I reached out my illusory hand, precisely pinched the sparkling, noble luck thread on Suja's body. Then, with all the strength I had at the moment, I forcibly unbound the other end from the senior leader who was reading a newspaper at home, and then I grafted it onto the golden retriever's tail. After doing all that, I felt a wave of weakness, but more than that, excitement. Full of confidence, Suja rang the doorbell at the senior leader's home. The person who opened the door was the leader's housekeeper. With an apologetic look, the housekeeper said to him, "Director Su, I'm really sorry. The leader left early this morning with his wife and dog to vacation at the suburban villa. He said they'd be staying for a week and wouldn't be seeing anyone." The smile on Suja's face instantly froze. Impossible. In his previous life, at this time, the leader had clearly been waiting for him at home and was entrusting him with an important task. Was the script wrong? He turned and left in a daze, and at the very moment he turned around, that golden retriever that had just brushed past him suddenly stopped in its tracks. Its owner, an ordinary-looking old lady, suddenly received a phone call. "Hello, Oldley, what? Your company's development zone project needs a collaboration consultant. Requirements: must have unique insights into local policies, and also, be approachable, preferably born in the year of the dog." The old lady was taken aback for a moment, then looked down at her golden retriever. "I think I might have a suitable canine candidate here." A week later, a bizarre piece of social news began circulating throughout the city. A key investment promotion project in a certain development zone, when choosing a consulting partner, ended up selecting a golden retriever named Wang Kai as the project's lucky mascot consultant, because both bosses were extremely superstitious, and paid an exorbitant endorsement fee for it. As for my dear brother Suja, he lost the last opportunity, and with the sudden push from a competitor, he missed out on the coveted director position by a hair. This was the first, and also the most baffling, Waterloo he had encountered since his rebirth. He sat in his office, unable to make sense of it no matter how hard he thought, and I, floating opposite him, gave him a pleasant, icy smile. The real show is yet to come. Having dealt with my brother Suja's luck with benefactors, my next target is my peerlessly elegant mother, Li Wan, a woman who made marrying into a good family her lifelong belief. Her life is an endless war of beauty contests and showing off. Her battlefield is the city's top socialite circle. In her previous life, she relied on the fortune she plundered from me to glow with radiance and charm. Even at the age of 50, she could still outshine all others, becoming the object of envy and jealousy among all the noblewomen in this life. She is even more impatient. After Su Ro inherited my fortune, Li Wan felt her condition was better than ever before. Her skin was firm, her figure slender, as if she had become 10 years younger. She immediately organized a charity auction ball, inviting all the socialites and noblewomen in the city. Her purpose was self-evident. She intended to formally announce her queen's return at this ball. For this ball, a month in advance, she had custom-made in Paris a starry sky evening gown, one of only 3 in the world, and also bought a set of heart of the ocean jewelry worth tens of millions. On the day of the ball, she stood in front of the mirror, looking at her dazzling reflection, and a triumphant smile appeared on her face. I floated behind her and smiled too. I could clearly see that the pink strands of fortune on her body, the ones representing popularity, charisma, and being the center of attention, were now shining wildly as if doped with stimulants. "Want to be a queen?" I thought coldly. "I'm afraid today, you'll end up a clown." I didn't directly graft onto her luck the way I did with Suja, because her charm fortune didn't have as clear a target as benefactor fortune. I chose a different approach: interference and amplification. I reached out and gently fiddled with those pink threads of hers, while attaching my icy resentment to her gorgeous, starry sky evening gown and the dazzling, heart of the ocean jewelry set. I didn't curse them, I just slightly adjusted their physical properties. A evening gown that becomes completely transparent under certain lighting, a set of jewelry that continuously magnifies the wearer's skin flaws, the ones they least want anyone to see. After doing all that, I drifted along like an audience member waiting for the show to begin. Following behind her car, the ballroom was magnificent and opulent, crowded with celebrities and prominent figures. When Li Wan walked into the venue wearing her starry sky evening gown and the heart of the ocean, she immediately became the center of attention. "Oh my God, it's that starry sky dress. I heard it's priceless and impossible to buy. Sister Li Wan is absolutely stunning today. Her skin doesn't look like that of a 50-year-old at all." Praise, like a tide, surged forth. Li Wan's vanity was immensely satisfied. She moved through the crowd like a proud peacock, basking in the attention of everyone. However, when she reached the center of the dance floor, as the brightest spotlight, specially turned on to create an atmosphere, shone precisely on her, a strange transformation occurred under that special, high-intensity light. Her originally deep and elegant, starry night, evening gown, in an instant, became almost completely transparent. Only a few scattered, symbolic sequins remained, still clinging to her body. The entire venue instantly fell into a dead silence. Everyone stared wide-eyed at the center of the dance floor, at the nearly naked, 50-year-old woman. What followed was something even more horrifying. The heart of the ocean, jewelry around her neck gave off an eerie, otherworldly glow under the lights. That glow was like a high-powered magnifying glass, bringing into sharp, unforgiving focus every fine wrinkle and every age spot on her neck and chest, laying them bare before everyone's eyes. Li Wan finally came to her senses. She let out a shrill scream and clutched desperately at her body with both hands, but it was already too late. Countless phones were already pointed at her. The flash of the cameras, like the most merciless blades, had forever captured her humiliating state. She wanted to run, but in her panic, her high heel twisted, and she fell to the ground in utter embarrassment. The dignity and beauty she had valued most in her life were crushed to pieces that night. But it's not over yet. As she fled in a daze through the back door of the ballroom, trying to hide in her car, she failed to notice that the manhole cover beneath her feet had been quietly shifted halfway open by some heartless person. With a thud, our noble, former queen of high society disappeared from everyone's sight amid a stench of filth. I floated in midair, watching it all with no ripple in my heart. I merely gave her a light round of applause. Welcome to your embarrassment special. After taking care of my dear brother and dear mother in quick succession, the Su family's fortune was clearly showing signs of decline, but Su Jiangwo, as cunning and calculating as ever, was truly seasoned. Although he too encountered a few little bouts of bad luck, like choking on water or twisting his ankle while walking, he attributed all of it to normal fluctuations after the transfer of fortune. He pinned all his hopes on Su Ro. As long as Su Ro could follow the reincarnation script and soar to success, everything the Su family had lost could be regained twice over. And Su Ro's first, and most important, plot point, was the upcoming college entrance examination. In my previous life, Su Ro had transferred from the countryside on short notice, and her academic foundation was weak, although she barely managed to get into an ordinary second-tier university by relying on the last remnants of my luck. This had always been a thorn in her side. In this life, she held my complete Ziwei star, fortune in her hands, and she also had the advantage of rebirth memory. She had even memorized the exact questions from the college entrance examination in her previous life. Her goal was the national top scorer on the college entrance examination. She wanted to use a score unprecedented in history and unmatched in the future to proclaim her return as a genius, laying the most dazzling first stepping stone for her future path to stardom. In the past few months, she really had done it. In every mock exam, she held the undisputed top spot in the city by a crushing margin. Everyone said the Su family had produced a once-in-a-lifetime genius. Su Ro enjoyed being the center of everyone's attention. She felt that this was exactly how she was meant to be. What she didn't know was that the reason things had gone so smoothly for her was because I had never made a move against her. I was waiting for the perfect chance to make her fall from the highest point and hit the ground the hardest, and the college entrance examination was the best stage for it. I could clearly see that, besides the purple gold main thread of fate that belonged to me but had already been tainted by me, there was also an independent cyan green Wenchang fortune thread on Su Ro's body, representing studies and exams. At this moment, that thread was brighter than ever before, and even at its tip, it had condensed into a fortune fruit in the shape of a top scholar. You want to take first place? I floated in front of her desk, looked at her face filled with ambition, and sneered coldly. The night before the college entrance exam, the 4 members of the Su family gathered together again and held a small celebration banquet. Ro, relax, Su Jiangwo said with high spirits. The top score is already in your pocket. Dad has already arranged the media. Tomorrow, as soon as you leave the exam hall, we'll immediately announce your genius girl persona to the public. Su Ro nodded confidently. Dad, don't worry. I remember every question from my previous life clearly. There's absolutely no chance of failure, absolutely no chance of failure. I smiled. The biggest variable in this world is me. That night, after everyone had fallen asleep, I came to Su Ro's room. I looked at the Wenchang luck thread on her body, which was about to mature, and reached out my hand. Formed from resentment, this time, I was neither fiddling with it nor grafting it. Instead, I used my strongest ability after the upgrade, sever. I gathered all my resentment at my fingertips, turning it into an invisible, razor-sharp pair of scissors. Then, aiming at that bluish-green thread, I cut down hard. Click, a crisp snapping sound rang out, audible only to me. The Wenchong Luck